Remote controls are one of the simplest pieces of technology found in most homes. With a quick press of a button, a television turns on, the volume increases, or a channel changes instantly. The interaction feels effortless, as if the device across the room somehow understands the command right away. Yet there is a small rule that most people learn quickly. The remote usually has to be pointed directly at the device for it to work. If something blocks the front of the remote or stands between it and the television, the command may not go through. In a world where phones connect wirelessly through walls and across buildings, this limitation can feel surprisingly old-fashioned. The explanation, however, lies in the kind of signal most remotes use and the way that signal travels. Right here on History of Simple Things. When a button on a remote control is pressed, the device sends a signal through the air. That signal is not sound or electricity. Instead, it is infrared light. Infrared is a type of electromagnetic radiation located just beyond the red end of the visible spectrum. Human eyes cannot see it, but electronic sensors can detect it easily. Inside the front tip of a remote control is a small infrared LED that flashes when a button is pressed. These flashes occur in very quick patterns. Each button on the remote produces its own coded sequence. One pattern might represent turning the television on, while another signals the device to increase the volume. The receiving device reads these patterns and translates them into commands. Infrared light behaves very similarly to visible light. It travels in straight lines and does not easily pass through solid objects. When the remote sends out its infrared pulses, they move forward from the front of the device toward whatever is in front of it. For the command to work, the light must reach the sensor located on the television or media device. If something blocks the path, the signal stops before it can arrive. As a result, the device never receives the command. Even small obstacles can interrupt the signal. A table, a cabinet door, or a person standing in the way may prevent the infrared light from reaching the receiver. That is why pointing the remote toward the device usually makes it work immediately. Despite the need for a clear path, remote controls sometimes work even when they are not aimed perfectly. This happens because infrared light can bounce off certain surfaces. Walls, ceilings, and glossy furniture can reflect a portion of the light in different directions. If enough of that reflected light reaches the device's sensor, the command may still be recognized. However, reflections weaken the signal. Each bounce scatters the light and reduces its strength. After several reflections, the signal may become too faint for the receiver to detect. The room itself also affects this process. Bright and smooth surfaces reflect light better than dark or textured materials, which tend to absorb more of the signal. The device being controlled has its own important component, an infrared receiver. This small sensor is usually located on the front panel of a television, DVD player, or streaming device. Inside the receiver is a photodiode that converts incoming infrared light into electrical signals. The receiver is designed to detect pulses at a specific frequency so it can recognize commands from the remote while ignoring other sources of infrared light. Once the correct pattern of pulses is detected, the receiver sends the decoded command to the device's internal processor. The processor then performs the requested action, such as changing the channel or adjusting the volume. Because the receiver faces outward, it works best when the remote is aimed in roughly the same direction. Infrared technology became the standard for remote controls for several practical reasons. One of the biggest advantages is cost. The components needed for infrared communication are inexpensive and easy to manufacture. Infrared signals also use very little power. The LED inside the remote only flashes briefly when a button is pressed, allowing the batteries to last for long periods of time. Another advantage is that infrared signals rarely interfere with other devices. Because they require line of sight and operate over short distances, they are unlikely to accidentally control electronics in nearby rooms. These qualities made infrared a simple and reliable choice for home entertainment systems. In recent years, some remote controls have begun using radio-based technologies instead of infrared. These include Bluetooth and other radio frequency systems. Radio waves behave differently from infrared light. They can travel through many materials, including walls and furniture. Because of this, radio-based remotes do not require a direct line of sight to work. This allows devices to be placed inside cabinets or out of view without affecting the signal. Many streaming devices, gaming consoles, and smart TVs now use these types of remotes. Even so, infrared technology remains widely used because it is simple, inexpensive, and reliable for basic control functions. The reason many remote controls need line of sight comes down to the physics of infrared light. When a button is pressed, the remote sends a coded pattern of invisible light toward a sensor on the device. These signals travel in straight lines and cannot easily pass through solid objects. If something blocks the path, the light never reaches the receiver and the command is not recognized. Reflections from walls or ceilings can sometimes carry the signal indirectly, but a clear path remains the most reliable way for the remote to work. Although newer wireless technologies are gradually changing how remotes operate, infrared systems continue to be common. Behind the simple act of pointing a remote at a television is a small burst of invisible light carrying a coded message across the room in an instant. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.